On the shark bite, which numbers do we want to see, do, go over, have questions about? Number 1. Four. We have 1, we have 4, any others? Right. This is a good refresher on things we were just doing in Unit 8. Domain of this graph, so you're looking left to right. Furthest point left, there is a solid point there. So that would be a bracket if you're using interval notation. I'll write it both ways. So it would start at positive 2. And then the arrow is going to keep going up and right. So it's going to keep going forever to the right. So it's going to end at infinity. So you can write it like that, or x is greater than or equal to 2. Questions on that one? Number 4, is this graph a function? You can use the vertical line test. Draw in vertical lines. If at any point one of the vertical lines touches your function more than once, it is not a function, but that does not happen here, so this is a function. Questions on that one? Any other questions we have on the shark bite? If no other questions, go ahead and look at the notes in front of you. It should be on intercepts. So as a reminder, for those of you who weren't here before, we are reviewing this unit. Each lesson is something we've already seen before. The grades from the quizzes and tests will go back and replace in whatever marking period they were in, as well as be grades in this marking period. So make sure you are paying attention, even if you got hundreds before, because they are still grades in this one. Right. First, does anyone remember the definition of what is an intercept, or what is an x or a y-intercept? Aaron? So graphically, I'm going to write both x-intercept, y-intercept. Graphically. It's where your function crosses, touches, or intercepts the x or y axis. So, and then the same thing for the y-axis. So graphically, where it crosses, touches, or intersects the x or y axis. Algebraically, it's where the opposite value is 0. So for your x-intercept, algebraically, your y value is 0. And algebraically, for your y-intercept, your x value is 0. page. Make sure you're writing this down. There are different names for x-intercepts. We've talked about them before. Anyone remember what those are? Solutions is one of them. Anyone remember the other two? Zeros is another. Anyone remember the last one? Roots. Remember that those are all interchangeable. Some deal with certain functions rather than others, but really they're all interchangeable. So then once you have all the definitions and the other names for them, look at numbers 1 through 6. Which ones do you want to see, do, go over, review? 2. Any others on this page? 3 and 6. Anyone still need the definitions? No. Y-intercepts are just y-intercepts. That's it. Okay, let me know when you're here. Yes. So, yeah, some so 3 and 6. Alright, so we'll start with 2. We're looking at where does this cross, it doesn't matter if we do x or y first, but let's say where does this cross the x-axis? At what point? -4. +2. So we're going to write that as ordered pairs. How would we do that? Negative, not 2, but -4, -0, and what's the other one? 2, 0. For our y-intercept, where does that cross the y-axis? 8. So how would we write that y-intercept as an ordered pair? Questions on how we found any of those? Right. Number 3, where does this cross the x-axis? -5 is one of them. Where else? +5 is the other. So how would we write those intercepts, those ordered pairs? And then where does this cross the y-axis? 5 and positive 5. And how would we write these? So the biggest thing with writing the intercepts from a graph is being able to write them correctly, put the 0 in the right place. 0 second for the x-intercepts, 0 first for the y-intercepts. Do we have any questions so far? For 6, where does this cross the x-axis? There are multiple places. Where do we see this go through the x-axis? -5. -5, 0 would be the ordered pair. Where else? 0, 0. Anywhere else? 3. So that would be 3, 0. What's the y-intercept? 0, 0. They share the same intercept. When we get back, we will talk about algebraic ways. Okay, let's continue. Did we have any questions on how to find it from a graph first? Next page. From just the first 6 first, do you have any of those you want to see, do, go over, review? Four. 1. Alright, let's start with those 2. So, in this format, I'm going to show you how to do the work for the y-intercept and then show you how you could avoid doing the work for the y-intercept, but the x-intercept, you have to do the work for it. So, if we know that in order to find the x-intercept, the y-intercept, the x value has to be 0. We can replace this f of x, it's the same thing as y. And then where x is, put 0 in. So we're going to solve for y. What will your y value become? Not -4, -8. So how would we write that as an ordered pair? When it's in this format, you could also just look at this number by itself. That's always going to tell you your y-intercept. So you don't have to do the work for the y-intercept if it's in this format, but if it's not in this format, then you would. X-intercept, your y value has to be 0. Excuse me. So we changed this to y already. Instead of y, we're now going to replace it with 0. And we're going to solve for x. How would we do that? how would we get x by itself? You said add.
Add 8, sorry.
Add 8. And then divide both sides. So 2 equals your x value. How would we write our x-intercept? How would we write that value or that as an ordered pair? Zero. Before we continue, what questions do we have on that process or how we found those? Okay, moving on. Number 4, without doing this work, look at that last number. This would be your y-intercept. How would I write it as an ordered pair? -6. So you don't have to do the work if you know what your y-intercept is, but by all means, you can always do the work. For the x-intercept, you can either rewrite this so it's y equals, or just put in your 0. Process is the same, even though it has a fraction. How would we solve for x? What would be our next step in solving this for x? Add 6 sides. And then how would we get rid of the 2/3? If you were on your phones and not paying attention. How do you think we would get rid of that fraction? Okay, we could divide it, but then we'd have fractions within fractions. What else could we do instead? What's the opposite of division? Okay, multiplication. So instead of dividing the fraction to both sides, we can take this and flip it and multiply by the reciprocal. You could have also multiplied both sides by 3 and then divided both sides by 2, making it 2 steps instead of 1. Either or. Multiply this, how many do you get? So then how would we write this as an ordered pair? was thinking y-intercept. You're right. 9, 0. Any others in this section? The next section is finding your intercepts from a calculator, like strictly using a calculator. Are there any of those you want to see, do, go over, review? If not, go on to the next page. So here are more where we have to find them algebraically. Which of those do we want to see, do, go over, review? Any others?
Number 5.
Okay, let's start with 5. This is an x equals equation, and it's telling you what your x-intercept is. I'm going to write this off to the side so we remember things about an x equals. Because it's an x equals, it's going to be a vertical line at -1. This is going to be your x-intercept, so -1, 0. Because it's going to be a vertical line at -1, it's never going to cross the y-axis. So it won't have a y-intercept. You put none, an A, doesn't exist. You cannot put 0, because that would mean there's a intercept at 0. It would be the opposite, but yes. Do you want to do that one, Elijah? Mm-hmm. Do you want us to do that one? Uh-huh. Right, for 8, there's a longer way to do this and then a shorter way. I'm going to show you the longer way and then talk through the shorter way, unless you want to do another one. So the rules are still the same. If you are solving for x, you have to put in a 0 for y and vice versa. So let's say I'm solving for y, I have to put a 0 in for x. When I put 0 in for x, this just becomes 0. The 0 won't help the equation, so I don't need to keep bringing it down. And then I can just divide both sides by -3. What would your y value be? +7. So then how would we write the y-intercept? 0, 7.
Okay, so you have let's say you have a test of it, and that question comes up. And if I don't add the 7 over 0, like what comes up with that?
This part?
No, the 7, and it's 7 times 0.
This part.
Yeah.
So
I don't, when I do that, when I do that word, I won't add the 7 times 0.
So if you wanted to skip steps, you could still do that first step, but then skip to the next step. And just keep showing the work. You would just skip that next step. That's all. Now, opposite for your x-intercept, put 0 in for y. This would become 0. So you can stop bringing down the 0 and divide. What's your x value? 3, -3. So your intercept is what? I'm sorry, your x-intercept, the ordered pair is what? Colton, you know the answer? How would I write this as an ordered pair? We have our x value. Where would that go? First or second? First, okay. What will go second? You know our y value up here? So what would we put in there? Colin wants to help you out. I don't think, do you?
7.
0. You guys aren't paying attention. You're not going to do better the second time. What questions do we have, Brian?
What equation is that on the left?
This one?
Yeah.
This is if you wanted to skip some of the steps. You would start off still by showing that you put 0 in, but then you could just skip to this one. Other questions on this page we want to see, do go over review. So with 4, I'll skip some of the steps. So for finding our x-intercept, we need to put 0 in for y. I know this is going to become 0. I'm not going to need the 0, so I can stop writing it. I don't have anything in front of the x, so I don't need to solve for it. That is my x value. How would I write that as an ordered pair? 56, 0. We can do the same thing for the y-intercept. Put 0. Put 0 in for x. We can drop the 0 and divide. What would your y value be? And your y-intercept we would write how? 0. Any others on this page we want to see, do go over and review. I have stuff written everywhere. Oh, that didn't work. Try again. Okay. 6 gives you the y-intercept but not the x-intercept. If it's the opposite of this, we don't know the x-intercept, or we won't have it, I should say. So it'll be none. the y-intercept is given. It's 5. So for those, there's really no work. You just have to know what you're looking at. Okay. Any others on this page? If not, go on to the next. Any on this page we want to see you go over a review? Uh, 14 was part of the write them, write what the intercepts are. So for 14, what would your x-intercept be? Where does it cross the x-axis? 0. And ordered pair, that'd be 0, 0. Where does it cross the y-axis? Also at 0, so still 0, 0. Other questions on this page we want to see you go over a review? 13. Alright, let's do x-intercept first. It doesn't matter though. Where does this cross the x-axis?
3.
3. So how would we write that intercept?
3.
Where does this cross the y-axis? Not a negative 3. There we go. And how would we write that? That'd be the opposite.
Oh,
So 0, negative 5. The y-intercept 0 is always first. X-intercept 0 is always last. Any others on this page you want to see if you go over a review? There are 2 different ways to go about doing this. One is using the graph, one is doing it algebraically. I'll show you both. So you can plot these 2 points. 3, 0 would be to the right. 3 at 0. 0, 2 would go start at 0 and go up 2. Because it wants you to write an equation, you need your slope and you need the y-intercept. You're given the y-intercept. So you have to find the slope, which you could start at either point and count down and to the right or up and to the left. Either way, that's going to give you negative 2 over 3 for your slope. Once you have your slope, you're given your y-intercept. So you can use those 2 to write an equation. It's going to be y equals your slope, negative 2 over 3, then x, then your y-intercept. Ryan.
Could the 3 be negative?
The 3 be negative. Oh, like in the slope?
Yeah.
Could be, like when you go to find it algebraically, you could find it that way, but you won't write it that way. It'll either be in the top or out front completely. You won't see it in the denominator.
Because it goes to like the last 3, the way I counted.
Yeah,
That's
so the
usually-
direction-wise, one of them is going to be negative. That part doesn't matter, but when you write it, it's either going to be in the top or out front. It's just notation. Right? The other way, algebraically, is if you use your slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Again, you don't have to do it this way. This just if you would rather. Label these as x1, y1, x2, y2. And then put each one in this format. So 2 minus 0 over 0 minus 3. So Ryan, this would be similar to yours, where the 3 in the denominator is negative, but when I go to write it, I would still write it like this. Either way, you now have your slope, you have your y-intercept, you can write your equation. Other questions on this page? If there aren't any other questions for the rest of the class, you could be working on one of the following. Going back in the problems we did not do and practicing, so you're good on intercepts for when we go to take the quiz and tests. Going back to do Khan Academy from Unit 8 if you have not, and emailing me so I can change your grade, update your grade. Going back to do the Khan Academy from this objective that was due October 7th. The names are on the board. You can go back and redo those or do them for the first time and email me and I'll update those grades. If you did not finish or take your Unit 8 test, now would be a good time to get that done and over with so your grade goes up. If you wanted to retake or said you wanted to retake, you could use this time to work on retake stuff. Start working on your test corrections, Khan Academy, Delta Math, all those things. Everyone has something to be working on, whether that's retake work, missing a test, practice, something. Anyone have questions on what we're doing today? If you need to finish a test or want to work on retake stuff, you can come to me.